Welcome to the Terry Sullivan Show. I'm excited about our show today because my guest, is a very busy man, and I'm so glad that he's here. I'm honored, actually, that he's here, and that's the police chief of the Lewisville Police Department in Lewisville, Texas, Chief Kevin Deaver. Chief, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. We normally don't have these chairs scooted this far apart, but I was a little bit fearful today, so. So let me just start here because I've got a lot of stuff to cover with you. But let me start with all the education that you have, because I think a lot of people have no idea unless they go online and look you up and do some research. But I kept reading and reading and reading. I kept thinking, my goodness, this guy's got a lot of law enforcement education. But you graduated from UNT with a BA degree in applied sciences, concentrating in criminal justice, public affairs, community service, and sociology. Handful. Graduate of the Institute of Law Enforcement Administration, School of Police Administration, and Management College.
Yes.
Graduated from the FBI Law Enforcement Trilogy Services.
Yes.
I have no idea what that is. What is that? What is that?
Most of it is leadership training. We send all of our sergeants and captains to different schools as they move up in the organization, and the higher you go, it's just one more level that you get.
You started your career in law enforcement in San Angelo in 1987. 1989. And then you joined the Lewisville Police Department in 1998. What brought you from San Angelo to Lewisville?
So my parents was in Odessa. See, we're not gonna do keep going.
Just keep going.
My parents, we used to live in the Odessa Midland area. Mm-hmm. That's where I grew up, born and raised. They relocated to Oklahoma, so I wanted to be closer to them. They were starting to get up there in age, so I wanted to be closer to them. So started looking in the Metroplex area, and found some agencies up here that I was interested in. The benefits for agencies up here is a lot higher than it is out in West Texas, mm-hmm. as you can probably imagine. Sure. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
This is what I know about Odessa, Midland. There's a lot of wind, a lot of sand, and the smell of oil. That's what I know about it.
That's when you know you're home.
So you joined the police department in Lewisville, 2018. Chief, that's more than 35 years of law enforcement.
Yeah, right at it.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
Is there anything you'd rather be doing? I mean, is this what you're going to do until you retire?
Yes, that's my plan. This is my last job. Don't want to do anything after this. I don't know what I could do after this other than maybe be a salesman for something law enforcement related, but love what I do, and hopefully this will be my last job.
I tell you what I could do. I could move to Aruba, get a t-shirt hut on the beach, and be just fine.
Now that sounds like a plan.
We could do that together, but right now I have to cook barbecue and you have to eat it and keep us all safe. Chief, how different is law enforcement today than it was 20 years ago?
Oh wow, it's drastically different. I mean, you start looking at it, obviously technology. I mean, when I started in law enforcement, we would get a phone call or a radio call from dispatch telling us to call them. We had to go to a convenience store and ask to use their phone to call dispatch. So yeah, we didn't have computers in our cars. That was probably the biggest change, is getting the computers in the cars. When I left San Angelo, we were just starting to get computers. Hadn't got them yet, but they were on the way in. So computers, probably the biggest thing. We used computers, at least initially, but they weren't connected. They were, you were just using that computer without the benefit of being able to do anything outside of what was on that local computer.
So the people that say, wish I could go back to the good old days, that's not you.
There's some positives to the good old days. Computers are nice when they work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think I would want to go back to that day and time.
Chief, it seems like the police departments today, not just in Lewisville, but all over the country are just microed. I mean, you've got social media, everything is filmed, everybody's got a phone. Every time a police officer stops, the phone is going to try to put it online. How does that affect your department?
Oh, it affects the officers drastically. That's probably the worst thing about the current climate that we're in is the officers here in Lewisville, we are being judged by the actions of officers 1,000 miles away. And, you know, there's some horrible incidents that are out there. I condemn all those incidents, the George Floyd death, you know, every incident like that. But what happens up there doesn't necessarily mean it happens here. And that's the bad thing. And then, you know, people want to be that next person that's gonna get something on videotape, I think. So they pull out their phones, and we've seen videos where people have been attacked, and people will pull out their phone to videotape, and I'm talking about regular citizens being attacked on the streets, and people will pull out their phone to record it instead of coming and helping the person that's being attacked. And that's unfortunate.
Why is that? Why? You hear that a lot. You hear where people are watching something unfold and they won't step in. They won't help. Why do you think that is?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's because they just don't want to get involved. You know, it's not my deal. It's that person's deal. It's a good question, but I think a lot of it is deep down inside. I think society is changing, and I wouldn't say necessarily for the better.
Right. It's difficult. We had a somebody in law enforcement in here last week, and he was telling me how short their police department is. It's not Lewisville; it's another DFW city. But he was telling me how short they are in officers, and that it's difficult to find people that want to be in law enforcement today.
Yes, very much so. So, you know, especially what we're seeing now is something that we really never have seen in the past, and that's people just getting totally out of law enforcement. They may have 5, 10, 15 years policing, and they get out of the profession altogether because it's just not worth it to them. Right now, we're really hurting in dispatch. We've got 30 dispatch positions, and 11 of them are vacant. I'm down probably 13 police officers at this moment, which we've been there before. We'll get those people hired back. But yeah, it's hard. And especially, you know, you mentioned San Angelo, where I came from. Cities out in West Texas are kind of on an island. So, you know, they're able to fill those vacancies and not really have to worry about them going other places. In a metroplex like we're in here, we're competing with the Grand Prairie's, the Garlands, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, a small pool of candidates in this area, and we're all after those same candidates. So we've got to stand out to be able to get those candidates here.
So does that mean that, I mean, obviously people in law enforcement are guys or ladies that want to join law enforcement, do like they do any other job. They go and they interview with different departments, and whatever the package is better, ever how it's better, that's where they go.
Yeah. So, and it's all about how they're treated. We just hired a guy, believe it or not, relocating to Texas from Hawaii. I don't understand that. I'd be going the other way. But I'm ready for retirement. He's not. So he was looking for a department in the Metroplex area, and he called several departments and got a cold reception from those departments by their recruiters. He would ask for information, and it just seemed like it was putting them out to give him the information that he needed. He felt differently when he called us. He said our recruiter was right on the top of it. Gave him the information he needed, invited him to come down to do a ride along, and he said that was the deciding factor. That's why he chose to come here.
How short are you in the field of detectives?
So we've got some open positions in CID. We've got 3 right now, I believe, and we've got positions across the department. We've got some in street crimes that are open. one NRO right now, a couple of traffic officers, and the reason's because we've got to fill the patrol positions. We've got to get that staffing to where we can pull someone off patrol to go to those other areas.
So when you put somebody up into a CID, street crimes, do you recruit from within up or outside?
Yeah, everyone that we hire, they start off in patrol. They've got to be in patrol for 2 years, and then they can move outside of that area. And that's where they move to become a detective, narcotics guy, neighborhood resource officer, school resource officer, all that.
Chief, let's change gears. I want to get into the Uvalde situation.
Okay.
So much news, and of course, you know, it's difficult to believe. You don't know what to believe at times. The media kind of goes all over the place, and as we all know, their story is whatever sounds best many times. But in that Uvalde situation, Chief, what should have been the protocol and the process of the police chief?
Let me expand it just a little bit, if you don't mind. I mean, what should have happened is they should have went in and took the threat out. It's really that simple.
Why did they wait?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know that. I don't have any inside information that hadn't been released to the public. I think probably they were waiting on SWAT, and that's not what we're taught. That all changed with Columbine some 20 years ago. So I think this has really set law enforcement back. I mean, if I'm on my way back to the office and I'm dressed like this and an active shooter goes out, I go in. That's what I get paid for. That's what my job is here. Now, you ask about the chief specifically. It depends on when the chief gets there. If he's one of the first officers, he goes in. If it's later on and he gets there after they've got plenty of officers, then he should take on a command type role and really facilitate everything that's going on. But honestly, if someone gets there and it's been 2 to 3 minutes, that threat should already be extinguished.
Is that situation a situation where every police chief is going to go? I mean, if that were here in Lewisville, same situation, would you be on your way down there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone that is available will go. When we have those situations, it's broadcast out. You'll have troopers go. You'll have probably as close as we are to other cities. You'll have Flower Mound going, the Colony going, maybe Carrollton going. We all support each other.
So how do you identify, and going back to the Uvalde situation, how do you identify where that shooter is? These are just questions that I have as I have tried to look through that thing. How do you identify where that shooter is and how quickly you go in to take him out without harming other people?
Yeah, so we're taught, you know, as you can imagine, a situation like this, you've got kids running out, teachers running out. You try to get information from them as you're going, but you're constantly moving. You're running past those that are running out. That's a good indicator of where the shooter is. If you've got people running from one hallway out and maybe not another hallway, he's probably down that hallway somewhere. And then you listen. If it's an active shooter, you're going to hear gunshots firing. You can ask the kids as they're running by, where's he at, and they'll tell you. And you just keep going the entire time until you get to that person and you take that person out.
How has that situation changed police departments all over the country? As far as your steps, your process?
You know, I don't know that it's really changed us because we train on what to do. You know, I think I don't know that it will change anything that anyone else who's doing it right.
Sure.
You know, I don't think it'll change anything there. Our training, we do it every 2 years. It's usually during the summer months so we can gain access to schools and things like that. We have actors there. It's extremely realistic. We put the officers under a lot of stress, and they have to make split-second decisions. It's not a check the box type of training.
Chief, talking to, if you had all the parents who have kids in Lewisville sitting right in front of you, what would you say to them as far as the safety of their kids in our school system?
Yeah, I would tell them it's paramount for us. I constantly communicate with the director of safety and security with LISD. We've had some meetings since Uvalde, several meetings coming up. We're working together to make the schools as safe as possible. I don't think we could do it on our own and they do it on themselves. We have to come up with something together that's going to work in that crisis that we can use and be able to solve those problems.
What do you like most about being a police chief?
Making a difference, I think. I mean, that's why I got into this job. That's why I wanted to be a police chief, was to make a difference. I've worked for police chiefs in the past that I've sat back and I was, if I ever became police chief, that I wouldn't do it that way, or I would do this. And now that's me. And I'm trying to do what's right by the employees of the police department and the people of the community.
I've never heard anybody say anything but great things about you.
That's nice to hear. You hadn't talked to everyone, no.
No, I haven't. But at our restaurant, we have a lot of law enforcement that come in and eat every single week, and I'm so glad that they're here and they come. Honored to serve them. But because I knew that our interview was coming up, I asked many of them about you, what they thought, how do they like you, how do they like the job you're doing. Every one of them, without hesitation, Chief talked and said such high regards and positive information about you, your personal life, the job that you do, the time that you spend, the commitment that you have to our city. So that's commendable to you.
Well, that's flattering. Thank you.
What do you like least about your job?
Oh, wow.
Did I cause you to blush just then?
No. Maybe a little. Let's see, what I like least about my job. Probably not being out there on the streets, being tied to an office. I get out as much as I can. Sometimes on Friday or Saturday night, if I'm not doing anything, if there's nothing good on TV, I'll put on the uniform and I'll go out and work with officers out on the street for 4 or 5 hours.
They got to love that. Chief's riding with us today.
I think they really do, and
they respect it.
Maybe so. I hope so.
They respect it, yeah.
I hope so. But then, every now and then politics gets in the way, and usually it's not so with local politics here. I can't say that for some of my fellow chiefs. We don't have the local politics that gets in the way of everything here. But national politics, that creeps in every now and then, and sometimes we get thrown in the middle of it. Not having to pick a side so much as they think we picked a side. And that's frustrating. You
mentioned earlier the George Floyd situation. A lot of times when that happens, a certain niche of society, they just go after all police departments. I remember back in 2020 when COVID was just rampant. All of a sudden we're talking about defunding police departments. How did that affect you mentally? When you heard that and you saw it happening in some cities, what did you think?
The world's turned upside down. That's really what I thought. I thought, what is going on here? How does that even make sense? But yeah, we talked earlier about people leaving the profession. There was a lot of people that left the profession in 2020 and 2021. They didn't feel like they were getting the respect they deserve. And, our people are willing to go out there and put their lives on the line every day for this community. And, you talked about the people from different, I think you used the word niches, coming in. And that's what we saw, after the George Floyd incident. We had some protests here in town, but most of those people were not even from Lewisville.
Right, right.
There's some agitators that's what they do. They go around and they try to agitate and get all the departments to do something silly and things like that, and that's unfortunate.
I've never been in law enforcement, but I can imagine, and quite frankly, I don't think I would ever want to be, because the pressure, the constant pressure and stress, not just of doing your job, not just the safety aspect of it, but the stress and the pressure from the media, from social media, from the public. It just seems to me that it's just drowning at times.
It can be, yeah. Especially those officers that they're constantly doing follow-ups. They've got that caseload. It's not decreasing just because they take a vacation day. They know that whenever they come back tomorrow, all those cases are still going to be there. And then from the patrol side, just not knowing what the next call is. What the next traffic stop is. You never know what you're going to get into, and you have to have that mentality of I've got to be ready for whatever happens.
What's the hardest part about your job?
Right now it's probably dealing with the political climate, the anti-police sentiment, encouraging people to stay in this profession, encouraging people to come into this profession. We've had some crises in the past that with different things throughout history. The policing has always come back stronger than it was before. We talked at the very beginning about my 35 years. Policing is different than it was 35 years ago. We talked about technology, but we're a profession now. I don't think we were always a profession where it was truly a professional atmosphere. We do a lot more training. When I started, I think the police academy was probably 4 months. Right now it's over 6 months. And that's not even everything. You don't go through the police academy, graduate, and you're on your own. You go through the police academy. Here we send them through a mini academy to teach them more about Lewisville. Then they go through a field training program. And then the continuing education. It's just so much more than what it was. We always try to be better and do better. And we, as evidence from George Floyd situation, and we've got a lot of work to do as a whole, as a profession.
How do you keep egos in check between women officers and men officers?
We really don't have that I know about between men and women in policing. Where we get issues with ego sometimes, it's maybe the patrol officer and the detectives. Patrol officer and narcotics, where sometimes people, they'll get those special assignments and they kind of think patrol is beneath them and treat them differently. And we try to remind everyone, everyone starts off in patrol and people can always go back to patrol if they need to.
Very soon you're starting to build a whole new facility. Whole new police department, and should. I mean, it's the other one's very outdated. When do you break ground for that?
Let's see, we should. It's going to be in different phases, so we should break down in October, November-ish of this year. That thing's got a parking garage associated with it. They're going to build that first, so that groundbreaking should be in October, November, and they're going to rework some of the parking lots in that area to accommodate more parking.
What are you most excited about in the new facility?
I think giving people the work environment that they need. Right now our property and evidence technician. So in our PD, I guess it was 2007. we built the new jail facility right next to the current police department. So when we did that, you know, we had an existing jail in our PD building that they moved out of. So that's where property and evidence went. So they're in a jail environment.
Wow.
Working property and evidence.
I'm excited about the new facility.
Oh, me too.
Your relationship with city management, just briefly, how does that look?
It's pretty awesome. I've been blessed with Donna Barron when she was here. She's the one that saw something in me and gave me a shot at the position. But you know, Claire came on, and I love
Isn't
Claire.
she the best? Claire is the best.
She.
I love Donna, but Claire is.
Yeah, I mean, her heart is in the right place.
Right.
And people sometimes lose sight of that, maybe as they move up in organizations or get to that top level. But her heart is truly in the right place.
Passion for people, passion for this city.
Yes.
Chief, we gotta shut it down. Thank you for coming. Listen, you are great for our city. I hope you're in this position for a long, long time. Thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Terry Sullivan Show. Hope you enjoy it. See you next time.